Interactive media, it's not a new concept, Mason. To name a few, we had the Clue movie, which had multiple endings from the 80s.
That's true, it did.
Everybody hated it.
X-Men Origins Wolverine had 2 different post-credit sequences, allegedly.
Apparently so,
Yep.
yeah. Video board games, Nightmare,
Yeah.
Rap Rat.
Light! Camera! Action! Now you're looking at a star attraction! I'm history in the making, and all yours for the taking. I'm the talk.
Yep.
Remember those?
Sure, yep. Zombie.
Zombie. All of these things paved the way for Bandersnatch.
The Sega CD game Night Trap.
Yes.
Remember that one?
That's not dissimilar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So basically, I want to talk about in this video how this episode of Black Mirror came to be.
Okay.
Our general thoughts of it, the future of this, etc. Do you want to know a bit of background of how Charlie
Yes.
Brooker and the Black Mirror team, including those people over at Netflix, got this started?
I said yes.
Oh, sorry.
Are we spoiling this?
Yes, spoilers.
Okay, right.
I'll put up a thing.
If you haven't seen this already,
You can.
you can. You absolutely can. What I would suggest, it's a TV show that plays out differently depending on the choices you make while watching it. I'd watch one narrative, then take a break,
Yes.
and then wait a day, and then watch the next one the next night,
I think that...
and then rinse repeat.
Yeah, because we'll talk about it, but it definitely lends itself to that more than just hunting down and finding them all within a 2-3 hour space. I feel.
mean, it's an interesting novelty, but I think the magic wears off a little.
Yeah,
that way.
absolutely.
If you churn through it to churn through it.
Okay, so basically it's this vast sprawling outline was written in video game programming language called Twine, which Charlie Brooker taught himself because it was the only way to capture the interlinked complexity of the various recursions
Okay.
of the
Ooh.
Bandersnatch story.
Oh, we're throwing some jargon
I took a
around.
lot of these words from an article. I stole this,
I
right?
understand. All right.
But basically, Netflix, they tested this with kids in the year leading up, including on the show Puss in Boots.
Okay.
Which is the spin-off of the movie Puss in Boots, which is the spin-off of the Shrek franchise.
Is Antonio Banderas the voice of Puss in
I
Boots in
hope
the TV
he is.
series? Yeah.
I hope he is.
Maybe that's the thing you get to choose.
Yes.
Who's the voice? Antonio Banderas? No, thank you.
Gilbert
And he-
Godfrey.
And he's in the booth and he's like, oh. Siri, play Despacito.
They said we felt that if it didn't succeed in kids' space, that it wasn't going to succeed with grown-ups.
Yeah, right.
Which I think is fair, because if a kid can work it out, then an adult does.
Can eventually work it out,
Yes,
yes.
because this is also for people who've never played video games, even though it is quite a lot like Quantic Dreams. You know those guys who make... they did like Heavy Rain, Detroit to Become Human.
Sure, yeah.
Where it's like racism but robots or
Yeah,
whatever.
right,
But if you've never played...
Jason! Anyway.
Yes.
Jason! Jason! Jason!
So if you've never played anything like that, obviously this would be a bit of a foreign concept.
Games like Detroit Become Human, or Heavy Rain especially, because that was kind of the prototype, they are more like you are watching a movie
Yeah.
where you occasionally are forced to make a decision.
Or brush your teeth.
Brush your teeth or something like that.
Yeah.
Where in a lot of cases, I think people would be like, I would have much preferred just to watch an animated
Yes.
movie kind of thing. But I think it really works for this.
I see.
Because it's live action and it's...
See, I'm not 100% sure if it does.
Okay, here we
but
go.
So anyway, Charlie Brooker though, when they came with him to the idea, and they said, "Do you want to do this?" He was like, "No," because he played a lot of those clunky CD-ROM games in the 90s.
Well, he was a video game reviewer,
exactly. But then, he thought about it and he's like, well, how can we actually make this work? If we make a kind of a meta-narrative where the person inside it is aware that they're in the narrative, then maybe that can be more interesting. Also, if the choices that the person makes are reflected from it very early on into multiple branching parts. Like you choose the cereal, then later on there's an ad for that particular cereal.
Sure, yeah,
and things like that. Apparently there's 1 trillion variations of this thing. But there's really like 5 key kind of endings.
Sure, right.
Yeah. So it was like a simple flow chart of like you do this, this, and this, but it's way more... I don't think it's been quite mapped out fully yet. But it's way more interconnected than I think people realize.
Which is interesting because it's a choose-your-own-adventure movie, essentially, about someone adapting a choose-your-own-adventure book into a choose-your-own-adventure video game, and they had to build it in much the same way as the character builds the video game in the movie. They had to map it out and build a programming language for it. Isn't that fascinating?
It is. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, do you ever play the Telltale games? Any of those?
No.
Yeah, because there's a lot of similarities.
The Batman and Walking Dead, etc.
etc. There's a lot. I feel like this kind of leans heavily on. I haven't played a lot of those, but it's definitely got influences there.
A game I have played though, which I felt this was very reminiscent of is the game The Stanley Parable.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
Which, for anybody who doesn't know it, it's a first-person action game where you play a simple office worker named Stanley who discovers that everybody in his office has disappeared.
Yeah.
And he has to sort of walk around and figure out the mystery. But the twist is that he is being followed around by an invisible narrator who narrates everything he does and everything that he thinks is going to happen.
Or if he tries to break the game,
Yeah,
the narrator's like, Stanley tried
yeah,
to-
so
Whoa.
if you just the narrator will say something like, and faced with two doors, Stanley chose the left door. And if you follow everything the narrator does, the game ends in about 5 or 6 minutes,
Right.
completely uneventfully. But if you play it again and you do other things, the narrator gets very irate with you and things go completely off the rails very quickly.
Well, apparently this, if you just don't touch anything, it'll just play for about 90 minutes and it's just fine. Like nothing really happens.
And in this one, if you, the first step I took, the first major step, the head of the video game company says, do you want to come here and work in my office and make this video game? And then it just ends.
Yeah, I said the same thing.
Yeah, and it just ends immediately with the review being, this game feels like it was made by a big company, by committee, wasn't that great, 0 stars.
Yeah. I think that particular outcome was intentional to show how it worked in terms of you could go back, because I think everybody watching that most people would have chosen that particular step. And then it teaches you, like a video game tutorial does.
Yeah.
No, if you make a mistake, you can go back.
I have to admit though, I was on tenterhooks this whole, like even the minor choices, like which tape to put in the Walkman.
Right.
Because I'm like, well, this is Black Mirror. Who knows what horrific thing will happen if I choose the Thompson twins over the best of the 80s.
Yeah, so some are obviously minor and inconsequential and others weren't so much. But I felt that it wasn't really that immersive for me as it went on.
Right.
Because you've got this weird 10-second pause in
Oh,
between
look,
choices.
again,
and obviously you need that.
And again, it's not a fast twitch shooter game. You need people who maybe have put the remote down and are checking their phone. They need to be like, okay, let's do this. But also, you're right.
It's not a quick time event where you get crushed by a rock or something.
No, that's true.
Where you got to quickly hit it. You know,
But it is, if you do play it as I did for like two plus hours as it keeps going, you do very much, you start to see the skeleton of it, and you see somebody go, so what are you going to do, man? I said, what are you going to do? You know?
And even if
every decision choice has somebody doing that piece of dialogue or looking at you pointedly.
And even if you click it early on, it still plays that 10 seconds.
Right.
Yeah,
but I think that's
for edited and
for seeming purposes.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. I didn't find the narrative that particularly engaging. I felt like the way that I did when I was a kid when I would read the Choose Your Own Adventure books.
You would keep one page on the... You would keep one thumb on the previous page and then one thumb on the new page. And if it didn't work out, you'd go straight back and try it again.
Yeah. But I felt like, even though I did most of it, I felt like I was only ever getting a slice of this narrative. Because each branching timeline, they don't tie in necessarily together. They're different realities. So in one reality, he has a dream where his dad and his mum are controlling him or whatever. But they're not. Another reality where there's a real life monster that's in his mind.
True,
or whatever.
yeah.
So I don't feel like it fleshes out a larger narrative. They tell different narratives that separately are weaker. But I think if they work together, then maybe it would have...
So what seems to be happening in the narrative, it isn't, well, here's this complete world, and if you go left instead of right, you see a different thing in that world. It's more of a case of, if you go left, you go into a different universe entirely where there's a monster, but if you go right,
you kill yourself.
You kill yourself and your dad. Yeah, exactly.
So, I don't know. I just think I don't want this to be the future of anything.
I think there will be maybe 1 or 2 additional stabs at this, but I think this is a very noble experiment. I enjoyed it a lot, but I think there'll be a couple of experiments, people just dashing one out.
Yes.
Being like, well, you know, Black Mirror did it. I reckon we can do this on, you know, we can write it in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Here we go, and it'll be terrible.
Exactly. I think it's going to be the same way that kind of 3D went, where you get the pinnacle of 3D with James Cameron's Avatar.
What movie?
It came out in 2009.
I don't recall it.
Nobody does. But that was, despite that being a fairly average film in our opinions, even though you don't remember it, it was the pinnacle of 3D.
Absolutely.
And then we just got 8 years of just mediocre, mostly mediocre 3D.
Yeah. And I think maybe a function of this is a very labor intensive just concept.
Yeah.
You know, just one scene would involve 10 different options depending on the serial you chose and the music you chose and what happened beforehand and who he called on the phone earlier and what have you. So I think most versions of this in the future, it'll just be, will I stay or will I go? There'll be 2 branches and that's it.
Well, that was initially what it was going to be. Like, it would kind of, at the end, you'd kind of make that choice.
I think when it was announced, I think it may be a case of they said, okay, well, this is a movie with 3 possible endings, and the rest of it was going to be quite similar.
Like Clue.
Yeah, like Clue, yeah.
Yeah. What I did like about it, though, I liked how it got meta with Netflix.
I agree, yeah.
Where the character was aware that you were watching and controlling them. That element of the story I found really interesting. Because I think that's the only way you can really make this kind of storytelling that engaging. I think there's other things to be done with this, but I can't imagine it being done much better than this. And that makes me think, is this worth being everywhere forever?
No, I think, well, what I think they did here is they absolutely cornered that market, and they explored, much like the movie Inception, straight away, you know, it was a movie about dreams, and they immediately went, yes, there's dreams within dreams. You know, in the opening sequence, they went, there's dreams within dreams. So that won't be the twist, that there's dreams within dreams. That's not going to be the twist at the end. Yeah. I very much feel like with this, they went, okay, well, in an interactive universe like this, there's parallel realities, and also the person watching is controlling it, and that person, you know, the person in the show realized that. And also, at a certain point, the actors forget that they are making a piece of media for Netflix, and they lose their minds. And again, that's another level. I think any future versions of anything like this will not go that far. Yeah.
See, look, I think overall it was an interesting experiment. And I'm glad I watched it and I'm glad it was made, but I'd still just rather a full series of Black Mirror or just a special of Black Mirror.
Right.
Was that just me?
That being said, though, every season of Black Mirror, there's some hits and there's some misses.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, And I'm going to say this was
Well, there's more coming up as well.
Oh, well, then that's all right. Yeah, well, then you don't have to make that choice, do you?
No, I guess I don't. Also, there's a few hidden Easter eggs and things like that. They've obviously got Metalhead and Nosedive, which are both episodes of Black Mirror. Also, Black Mirror is almost exclusively in the future, but it's odd that this is a Black Mirror episode actually set in the past, but it only works because it's not a real reality, because it's a reality created by Netflix for Netflix.
Yeah, right.
Within the Black Mirror storyline.
Okay, sure.
Seasons.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I see that actually hadn't occurred to me at all. I would like to see some Black Mirror episodes set in the 80s.
He's mentioned
in the past.
Yeah, Charlie Brooker's mentioned in the past that he'd like to find a way to do it, and I guess he did.
Yeah, but I guess because Black Mirror is about the technology of now being pushed too far, I guess the idea would be you could tell a story set in the past, but it would then have to tie back into the modern day or the future.
Yeah, right.
Perhaps. So,
yeah.
But look, I'm not a writer for the TV series Black Mirror.
That's true, you're not. Mm-hmm. But basically, one of the Easter eggs is, though, you can download a version of Nosedive from the show.
The Commodore 64 version.
But you can only get it on the ZX Spectrum.
Okay.
And you can only play it on a emulator for that.
Oh, that's fun. Okay, cool.
So I kind of like little things like that. I'd imagine there's other hidden endings and branching paths and scenes that won't be discovered for a while.
Right, yeah,
Because even things where, you know, you call the number on the phone, there's a lot of possibilities there, and I'd imagine you can get some other things there.
Yeah, and I think there's also there's versions where if you choose a certain response multiple times in a row, as opposed to changing, you know how often you're given 2 options and the first time results in your death, and then you try the next one. If you just try the first one over and over again, apparently the results are different again.
Yeah.
So.
People are saying playing the same scenes in the same way that other people did, they've still gotten different results.
Ooh.
So yeah. Do you want more of this?
Not currently.
No.
But again, neither. I think that also I feel that's also a function of that I did sit down and go, oh, this is quite fascinating. I'll watch every version and keep it going until I feel I've explored every possible option and every possible reality. And by the end, I was kind of like, well, that was exhausting. So
yeah, because imagine this, but like The Ranch on Netflix. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just can't imagine this being any better than somebody making something better than this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and because I didn't like it that much.
Okay, I liked it a lot. So.
It was interesting. Yeah, it was interesting. All right, look, we do videos here every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday.
Yeah.
There's also a podcast episode of our show called The Weekly Planet, where we talked about all the best and worst things of the year. That came out on Monday. Please give it a listen. It's okay.
It's good, I would say.
All right, then. Anyway, guys, have a good New Year time.
I'll grab it at Jeremy, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.